Many of those Biden initiatives reflect the ideas and priorities presented in the Green New Deal, which Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York introduced back in 2019. And she joins me now. Great to have you on, Congresswoman. First, how are you feeling about this announcement of all these actions today?
No, I'm feeling extraordinarily encouraged. And I think that the significance of President Biden's executive orders communicates a lot. One is that it really communicates that he meant what he said on the campaign trail, that he would make climate change a central priority of his administration, and that he considers it not just a national security threat, but frankly, the global matter that it is. But it also really signifies a good faith, openness, and relationship to those activist communities that you had mentioned, these grassroots communities and organizations, on the ground workers, et cetera, scientists saying we are not going to be resistant to grassroots movements, but we are going to collaborate and work with grassroots movements all across the United States to make sure that we are creating as many jobs and as much justice as possible as we fight to save our planet.
It's, what strikes me as someone who's covered the issue for, 14, 15 years at this point, is that the politics seems to have changed a bit in terms of the defensiveness. I mean, there was still, you even saw it in some of the debates, this sort of vestigial defensiveness, like, oh, we can't, if you look at the polling, like, it just is not some issue that Democrats are on the wrong side of 65-35 in the public polling. It just isn't. And I felt like I saw that reflected today in terms of how the administration at least is messaging on it.
Yeah, I mean, climate has become a winning issue, and it's gone from being a debated issue to very squarely in the eyes of voters from Iowa to New York City, realizing that we need to mobilize right now to save our planet, to save our agricultural sectors, and to preserve our future. And so you have this broad coalition of people across the country, whether they are farmers that are trying to explore regenerative agriculture and other sorts of methods to sustain our future, in terms of food and produce, to young people who want to enjoy a habitable planet, to even Wall Street, frankly, that is increasingly starting to realize the profound economic threat that climate change represents for our future as well. And so there is a very unique alignment where we are seeing, as the years go on, the incredible amount of damage and the fact that, frankly, climate change is here. And as President Biden said, this is action that should have been taken long ago, but it's very encouraging that we are starting off on this foot.
Yeah, that last point about banks and the Federal Reserve announced they're going to start a sort of climate risk committee, which is a big deal, too, that it's interesting to watch the political economy of it, too, right? Because you have the politics of it, you have activists, but then you have these sort of amoral actors that are just trying to navigate, in interest of their long-term interest and bottom line, right? And I thought this line...
Yeah, some folks are just trying to make a buck.
Right, but when you get them acknowledging it, like the New York Times made this point today, I thought, in the analysis, they said, automakers are coming to accept that much higher fuel economy standards are their future. Large oil and gas companies have said some curbs on greenhouse pollution lifted by former Donald J. Trump should be reimposed. Shareholders are demanding corporations acknowledge and prepare for a warmer, volatile threat. There is a locus of momentum, not even in politics, in the economy, in corporate America, to just deal with this as a reality independent of justice commitments.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, that is the beauty of being in alignment with science, is that climate change is not a politicized issue and the existence is not a political debate. This is fact, and this is scientific fact, which means that for-profit corporations, which means that scientists, public policy, we got to get our act together to survive. But also, yes, if a even if folks in the private sector, for example, an automotive company, doesn't want to get with the program, they are essentially on track to obsolescence. And this is where public policy can be powerful. For example, when we talk about converting to an all-electric federal fleet of vehicles, this is something that we pushed for on the Biden Unity Task Force, where we had Green New Deal advocates, along with more moderate members of the caucus coming together, debating how we're going to push and shape this policy. And this was kind of one of our demands. And one of the things that we were talking about was, are we going to set a date for, the day or an aspirational goal for the time that we sell the last combustion vehicle in the United States? And while that was a little bit trickier to figure out, one thing that we can control is when would potentially be the last date that the federal government will purchase a combustible vehicle. And we can do that much more swiftly and much more quickly. But we are also starting to see that the private sector wants some of these pegs. They want some of these target dates, because one of the things that we know, and I say this as also a member that sits on the Financial Services Committee, is that for long-term growth, corporations do want the stability of goals and deadlines. And if we know 10 years out that we're going to say, we don't want to purchase any more combustion vehicles, or 15, 20 years out on various carbon emissions pegs, we will get a response. And this is something that, as you mentioned, shareholders are asking for as well.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.